listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
Two things. We were dangerously close to having another conversation off air that was not recorded, which is 2 weeks in a row.
That would
now.
have been 2 weeks in a row. I don't
is
know.
Our friendship starting to grow back? Is that what's happening?
I don't know how I felt about it. In fact, I do know how I felt about it, which was we were about to launch into that conversation, and I said to you, "Just tell me on air.
Yeah.
Let's stop having these unrecorded."
I'm not even
conversations.
talking about that. That was the second point. The first point was a boiled egg conversation.
I mean, that was classic TOFOP content.
I
too.
know. That's what I'm saying. We're burning
banana
so much
bread,
gold.
boiled eggs. I mean, let's circle back. So we delayed today's recording of the podcast because Charlie had embarked on, what happened? Did you have some old bananas? Is this you started with old bananas and decided to
I
make
have started
banana bread?
baking on a Saturday. It's becoming something of a regular thing now. Mainly as like an activity for Iona, but mostly because I love eating baked goods. And, you know, I don't have many vices these days, Will, but once I realized that, baking's not that hard and it tastes fucking amazing. And I've got an excuse now because there's an arts and crafts component in the making of the thing. And then Jem doesn't really have a sweet tooth, and Iona's only little and doesn't have a particularly sweet tooth. So I get to eat the spoils. Like, to the spoils go the victor. And in this case, I am Victor. Victor Pie Eater, call me, please.
I mean, I think the expression might be to the victor go the spoils rather than to the spoils go the victor. But I understand the point you're trying to make.
Victor was dyslexic. That's what people don't understand.
Yeah, and that's
when he
fine.
came up with that saying.
Exactly. He was great at sayings, not great at ordering them. People would sort it out later. Yoda's not great at it either, but one of the wisest people of all time. Exactly.
So I've actually been running through a whole gamut of. So it started off. We've also been getting these veggie boxes from this local farm. So getting some super fresh veggies.
So like a weekly veggie box sort of deal.
Yeah, and you don't get to. Often you don't get to sort of pick what's in it. They just whatever in season is what you get. So it's getting a lot of.
You're getting what we fucking send you, and then you deal with that.
Hey, city boy.
Yeah, this is what we grew this week, mate.
Yeah,
if you want strawberries, you have to fly them in from China. I'm sorry, mate.
Yeah,
this is what you're working with. Here's your mystery box.
I just drive out to a farm and there's just a box of vegetables just on the side. It just says, "Eat it!" Exclamation mark. Eat it, city boy.
Deal with it.
Yeah. So I was getting a lot of rhubarb initially, and so I was like, I don't know what to do with rhubarb apart from make apple rhubarb crumble. So that's where it started.
Rhubarb feels to me like one of those things that was only invented for actors to say in the background of scenes to pretend that they were actually saying things. Like, it doesn't actually it is only that, isn't it? Like, I
can't. Well,
we've gone out of our way to fucking include rhubarb, is what I'm hearing.
Like, you have a farm where you grow rhubarb. Like, seriously, how big is that market?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to find out something about rhubarb. Let's find out. Rhubarb. What is rhubarb? Is fleshy edible stalks.
Oh, yeah. Hot. So hot. I got a fleshy edible stalk right here for you. You know what I'm saying?
That's how you make a baby. You get a fleshy edible stalk.
Rhubarb, rhubarb, rhubarb. That's the noise you hear coming from my bedroom.
Oh, my God. Okay. Cooked and used for food. Okay. A lot of very fancy words here that aren't going to get us any closer to finding out actually what it is. The large triangular leaves contain high levels of oxalic acid and anthrongliosides, making them inedible. So, you could make a pretty good argument the entire fucking thing's inedible. But the leaves are definitely inedible. We could not find any recipe that we could whack the leaves in. The stalks Let's see. Okay, where do they come from? Okay, the precise origin of culinary rhubarb is unknown. No one wants to admit to it.
Because some fuckhead had to eat that leaf and then get through that part to get to the fleshy stalk.
They were grown in the 18th century. They go back to the 18th century and originally used for medicine. That makes a lot more sense. It tastes medicinal, rhubarb, right? By the early 18th century, there was a new hybrid being grown in England and Scandinavia. The culinary rhubarb was developed. So they've actually, it was inedible, and they've just gone, we've got to get down to the lab with a pen and a pad, and we've got to fucking work out a recipe for rhubarb. We've just got to work out how to eat this shit. So they've open pollinated seeds, so its precise origin is impossible to determine. So they don't know how they made it. They barely know how to cook it. Although rhubarb is a vegetable, it's often put to the same culinary uses as fruits. The leaf stalks can be used raw, like celery, but are most commonly cooked with sugar and used in pies, crumbles, and other desserts.
Yeah, okay. So I actually did, because I was like, rhubarb, I don't think I've ever eaten one of these, not in a crumble. And so I ate a raw one, and I do not recommend. Like, it is, like, yeah, you can eat it like celery, but it tastes nothing like anything good. It just, it's got a very sort of, it doesn't have as crisp a consistency as celery. It's a bit chewier and definitely just, it's not sweet or anything. You can see actually why you put it with apple, because apple is super sweet.
By the way, when your review is not as good as celery.
So I looked up the top 10 rhubarb recipes and they all look disgusting. I mean, there's rhubarb custard bars is the first thing they suggest. There's rhubarb crumble. There's rhubarb jam, which looks actually okay. Rhubarb scones looks no good. Strawberry rhubarb cream. Like, what I'm getting from this is you put rhubarb with something that's actually good.
Good. That's, I mean, you'll basically.
It's the Andrew Ridgeley of root vegetables. Put it with someone talented, you'll get something amazing.
Yeah, but much like Wham and George Michael's solo career, what you find is once you get rid of the dead weight, you blossom into who you're really meant to be. That's what I always thought, because my nan was a rhubarb. That's what I associate it with. Nan would make rhubarb, and it would all be, these sweetened versions of desserts.
Lots of sugar.
But my memories would be, yes, you have to serve this thing with so many bad things to make it edible. Wouldn't we be better just to eat the bad things and not like, unless rhubarb has some special power that, like, if you eat rhubarb, you'll live for another 10 years. But like, it doesn't even seem to have a heap of like benefits that you can't get with any other food.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it is the straight man of the dessert world. You know, like, you've got if every sweet thing is Jerry Lewis, rhubarb is definitely. But then again, Dean Martin had his own kind of charm, didn't he? Like,
Dean Martin was at base level celery. Like, I mean,
what would it be then if they're in terms of like great duos? Has there ever been a duo where one is like just the super talented, fun one, and like that's like, I'm thinking Penn and Teller, like Teller's meant to be the mute, but he's still got his own charm. So it's not like, is there any being duo that's built off one being great and one person just being bland?
I mean, I'd love the idea that if one of the guys in Daft Punk was doing nothing, but no one could tell which one it is.
Well, originally we thought with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, like Ben Affleck was the rhubarb and Matt Damon was the apple, but then we worked out they're both pretty appley.
What about Seth Rogen and James Franco? Is James Franco – no, because he was still – like, I mean –
he's got his own charms.
Yeah. No, that would be like if rhubarb –
horrible potential alleged abuser.
If rhubarb started like feeling people up and mistreating them, then I guess – no, it's more like – because rhubarb is only good when there's something – like, I mean, is rhubarb – I guess we're talking about a duo here. But realistically, what I think rhubarb is like the Joey Fatone or the, like, you know, in a boy band or in a like a K-pop outfit.
I think I know a bit about boy bands. I think you're talking to the right guy.
They're throwing in one for the girl who isn't into the hot one. Like, you know, the
or
one
it's the brother of the lead singer.
He's my favorite though. Like, for the audience's point of view, that one is like, I identify with that one because I'm not the popular girl or popular boy. Like, there's one in the band that I can identify with. I think rhubarb feels more like that.
Yeah, I agree. So rhubarb and apple crumbles where it started, which is surprisingly healthy. Like there's only about, I think 3, maybe 2 tablespoons of sugar are used in total and a bit of butter, but I think
bit of sweetness from the apples though. So that's
lots of sweetness from the apples. Butter doesn't count. And then, so then I thought, and then Iona, she wasn't impressed with the apple crumble. She didn't like the consistency of the crumble and she wanted an apple pie. And I was like, shit, I've never made a pie from scratch. And Gem's gluten-free, so that's the other challenge is these desserts have to be gluten-free as well. So I made a gluten-free apple pie, which I really enjoyed, but the pastry process I found quite stressful, like keeping that consistency with the pastry and rolling it out and trying to build the pie in the pan. I don't know if I had maybe – I did everything to the letter of the recipe, but it felt like I didn't have enough pastry and I was – trying to stretch this pastry over the pie and I got really fucking angry. Like I had one of those moments of just kind of like, grumpy old man Charlie, whereas I was in the kitchen while they were out the backyard playing or something and I was swearing my head off because I couldn't get the top layer of pastry to cover the pie. It kept sort of splitting apart and I'd take it off and roll it into a ball and then roll it out with a pin and then try and get it back on. And then I watched a YouTube video where it's like, well, you roll the pastry onto the pin and then you unroll it off the pin across the top. Yeah. But I couldn't get that fucking going either. And so in the end, in a real petulant kind of like moment, I just fucking whacked down the pastry and, it was just glibs and globs all over the top of the apples and whacked it in the oven and then went out and declared to my family who had shown no interest at this moment that the apple pie is going to suck. Everybody just letting you know now, it's a disaster. I've just wasted the last 2 hours.
The thing that you probably had forgotten that I was doing. You thought I'd gone in and watched football or something. And you're like, where's Dad? Haven't seen him. It's okay. It's going to be no good. I mean, nothing. That is part of the baking process. As somebody who, has done more baking than they've done regular cooking in my life, I will say that part of the baking process, because baking is so precise and you can fuck it up at pretty much every level of, what's going on when it comes to baking. You throw your hands up in the air so often and it's so hard to hide your fuck ups when you're baking. Like when you're cooking other foods, it's just so much easier to fix it up. But in baking, it's like you have to see and eat your fuck ups.
I'm not a good find. Look at my fingers. Look at these hands.
I mean, you don't have the fingers for it. You should.
I'm not a fine details kind of guy.
Probably needed to look up a special recipe for people with short fingers.
Yeah, I'm not crimping the edges of a fucking pie or doing anything. I can't do it. And I also I don't have that way. I don't have the eye for it. I'm not a visual person aesthetically. No. Having said all that, when I brought the pie out of the oven, that kind of hodgepodge of angry tossing of the top layer of pastry formed quite a artistic,
bit of a pattern, right?
Yeah, a bit of a pattern, like a crisscross kind of pattern.
And you know
Jen
how
looked at it, she's like, "This looks amazing."
Yeah, it looks good, right?
Yeah,
and it looks a bit like homemade, and it looks like the sort of thing that you would see in some fancy restaurant where they're like, "No, it's our restaurant version of an old school, reminds you of when you were growing up apple pie."
Yeah, this is an authentic 1880s recipe.
And the reason it reminds you of that is it's really fucking hard, and most of our parents threw the shit on top and splashed it everywhere and yelled at us that the pie was going to suck. And then 2 hours later, we were all like, "Actually, this is pretty good, to be honest."
So that apple pie it actually turned into a real positive for me because it turns out that Iona wasn't that into it. Gemma, again, doesn't have a sweet tooth, so she had a slice. So I had most of the pie to myself. I was the 1% of the house. Well, I was 30% of the house who had 90% of the pie, which I like those odds. And then, so last week, the last thing we had left over from the veggie box was a shit ton of carrots. I'm like, carrot cake. I'm going to make a carrot cake, but I wanted to make one that was healthier. So I looked up a healthy gluten-free, obviously, version. So I didn't do the cream cheese icing. And I know you're going to fucking hate this, but trust me, it actually worked out really well. I just used yogurt and half a cup of icing sugar in yogurt with some vanilla essence. And it was a really good icing. It goes really well. You get a bit of that tang of what you'd expect with the cream cheese. It's not quite as obviously fatty as the cream cheese. So it's a bit thin, if I can't think of a better way to describe it, because you're sort of having to kind of, you put a bit of water in with it as well to make sure it covers the whole cake. So it's not like that. When you get to the icing of a cake and it's like, I did it. I climbed Mount Cake and now here's my reward is the delicious icing. So it's not that. You don't get that little high note at the end of the cake, but I think it's pretty serviceable.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I've been on the public record about this, at all times, which is that like cake is just a publicly acceptable way to eat icing. And the idea that like the icing is the topper, not the feature, is like one of the most fucked up things about our society. So I don't really care what the carrot cake underneath is like.
I disagree.
I'm here for the
icing.
I
enjoy the cake more than the icing.
Yeah,
whenever I eat a cake,
you're absolutely wrong about this.
It's too sweet.
No, but that's because you're a fucking tourist, right? Like you don't eat as much cake as me. Like I know what I'm talking about. I eat cake. I would eat cake 4 times a week minimum. 4 times a week I would eat cake. Yeah, minimum. When I'm doing shows every day, like every single day that I do a show, I will eat a piece of cake. The cake is widely available.
Yeah, but like if I'm thinking
shops, I'll go to somewhere nice.
The same shop, or are you trying different cakes, or you got regular?
No, so when I'm in Melbourne, I did like a different cake a day. So I would look up like places in the city that had like, famous cakes. There's a place called Black Star Bakery, for example, that has this like world famous Instagrammable, cake. And I was like, oh, right, that's the one I'm going to have today. But some days it's just I'm walking past like some place and there's like a cake in the window. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like I would like go to like I quite like a Greek cake. Like there's a like a Greek bakery. Oh, like one of those sort of like orange and semolina or lemon of like denser. I don't want it to be like the same sort of cake every day. Like I like a variety of cake, and I've got to say that I used to be quite mocking a carrot cake, but for whatever reason, recently I've quite got back into carrot cake, and I agree with you. The cake is like when a good carrot cake is good. There's actually one that the organic bakery in Byron Bay makes that is proper old, like, I mean, even the icing is full of so many grains and it's like the icing you'd eat if you were climbing up a mountain, you'd have it in your pocket because it's just like full of trail mix and like nuts and forage shit. Like it's the healthiest tasting cake I've ever eaten, but it's delicious and it doesn't have, all that sort of traditional cream cheesy element of it.
Yeah, I was surprised though that the carrot cake probably had more sugar than the apple crumble. I would have thought the apple crumble was going to be the worst because it tastes the sweetest, but I think apple crumble. It's the apple, but it's also the butter. The apple crumble has more butter. Mm-hmm. Well, potentially I could have put more butter in the carrot cake, but I cut back on that. And then so today, again, my family's showing zero interest, so it's become more my thing now. We had leftover bananas from the veggie box, and they're all getting brown. So I was like, well, I know what to do with those. Stick them on my butt. And then
it's the worst time to do that. Like you've got to get them when they're firm and green, I'd imagine.
No. No, I think no. I did that once. Well, never again. Banana green will be unseen. That's what I say. Don't know why we took that left there. So I mashed up the bananas. Again, found a healthy recipe. So not a lot of sugar, mainly like honey and other stuff. And bananas are very sweet anyway.
You know what you would say when you went to the toilet the first time after that? Sorry, I'm so sad that I'm going back for this joke. But I should have said it at the time. It's going to annoy me for the next 40 minutes if I just don't say it out loud. The next time you went to the toilet after shoving the banana up your ass, you would say,
better be worth it.
It won't be. How could it be? This shit is bananas.
It was. I doff my cap to you, sir. It was definitely worth the wait. Gemma just walks past the bathroom and just hears me muttering, this shit is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. You all right now? Don't come in. Don't come in here.
Please.
Oh, it's okay. I'm just about to eat one of the bananas. No, don't do that either.
Definitely don't do that.
Let me take the skin off first.
Local farmers refusing to send them anymore.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go.
So today,
Yes.
and we had scheduled like a morning record, like 11 a.m. And
Yes.
it was about 10. And I was like, yeah, I should make this on time, no probs. Because I thought in the past, the baking's been about like 40 minutes the most. But I got that shit in the oven, and then I looked up the cooking time, and it was like an hour. And I was like, oh, that took me by surprise. Is that what you're...
55 minutes when I cooked it. Yeah,
55 to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
60 if you... and I did throw in some dark chocolate and some pecans.
Oh.
So...
Did you toast the pecans before you put them in?
No, I didn't. I felt that maybe the oven would do the heating for me.
I know, but if you put anyway, I made a lot of banana bread during lockdown. But if you're going to put pecans in, and I did some versions with pecans, nice, good option, I reckon. But if you like toast them lightly under the griller or whatever, just before you actually put them in, the flavor really comes out in the.
Yeah, I mean, I did think about that. I knew I was being lazy, but I had a podcast to record.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm not. This was the discussion we were having off air, which was that I said, "Did you leave it in the pan?" Because the way the best recipe that I cooked by was, "Oh, did you put it straight in the pan, or did you put baking paper in the pan?"
They said to butt it just to grease the dish, but I used baking paper because I was like, it's not the right, because this is the controversial element, is I don't actually have a bread tin. So I've used a cake tin. So I actually had 2 trays out at one point. I had like my wide sort of baking tray, like the smallest one I have, and the cake tin. And I was like, oh, what's going to be better? Because you want to slice it like bread, not like a cake. So I actually put the baking paper in the baking pan. But as I was pouring the batter in, I was like, fuck no, there's nowhere near enough. This is going to be like the thinnest. It's going to be like a banana pizza.
Yeah.
So I had to then, I was very proud of myself. I managed to gather up all the corners of the baking paper and transfer it into the smaller cake tin without dropping a drop of batter. Yeah.
Because the one I kind of settled on, the method was to cook for 55 minutes. Yeah, and I would put baking paper in the tin, and then I would just let it sit in the tin to cool down. So it would kind of cook and keep its construction around like the bottom.
Yeah, and you got me worried now. So when we
you can take it out. I'm just saying.
So it's not going to
I don't think so.
It felt very firm.
Yeah.
When I got it out of the tin.
Rigid,
it was
turgid,
it was cooked.
Would you say?
It was very turgid. It was rock hard. But I tested the center and it's all cooked and stuff. So I'm assuming look, I am no what's an expert baker called? I'm no
What is an expert
chef,
baker?
gourmet baker?
Patisserie?
Patisserian.
You're not any of those things. The great thing about banana bread / cake, though, is also it's nice to recook, right? So, like, if there's ever you can toast it, you could like put it in the pan, you can reheat it. Like
my local cafe, one of the best things ever on the menu is like this gluten-free vegan banana bread, which I would think I would hate, but they top it with like maple butter,
good things,
and
like rhubarb. They put it with good things that make it taste good.
Actually, that reminds me. Speaking of blueberries, is yesterday Iona loves bluey like most kids and adults in Australia, and I just came across this thing on Instagram, which was like, "Hey, make your kid bluey toast," and it's like just so you just you butter a piece of toast and then you cut the ears out and you get a couple of slices of banana for the eyes and a banana for the nose and top the eyes with the blueberries for the pupils and all that kind of stuff. So yesterday I got up early before she woke up, made the Bingo, like Bingo's a character from Bluey, made Bingo toast and got the bananas for the eyes and put the blueberries on, but I didn't have any blueberries. And I was like, oh no, I've got frozen blueberries. So I put a couple of frozen blueberries on for the eyes and then, a little the biggest blueberry for the top of the nose and the banana. So Iona comes out and she's delighted, I get the reaction I want. She has her other breakfast, she has like a smoothie first and stuff. And then I hear her start crying at the table. And when I go back over, the frozen blueberries have started to melt. And so
And
Bingo
run
has
at the
like tears
eyes,
of blood.
like Bingo's an emo or something.
You're crying tears of blood. She was horrified. She was like, Bingo looks scary.
Yeah, that's like her nightmares.
Yes,
Bingo to hell.
Yeah. So I said, and that's why we don't do meth.
Just good to get those messages in early.
The other thing we were discussing is a message we need to get across to all you listeners, you teabaggers out there. It's something that I've had to get my head around. So you've noticed there's been some changes happening in TOFOP land.
Yeah, so Charlie was going to tell me this off air, and this was the point. So we had a little conversation about banana bread, not in the detail we just did there.
Well, I'm glad we actually got some mileage out of it because I felt like we were, burning tickets before.
But then you said you were going to explain to me something about our business here at TOFOP HQ, and I thought, you know what, we need to explain it to the listeners, so you might as well explain it to me at the same time as you explain it to the listeners.
Yes. So Mike III sent an email around to all TOFOP employees. By the way, you've just gone.
I know. I love.
You look like Mr. Bad from E Street.
This new thing that's happening with the podcast.
It's when we record. We can't record in midday during winter at your house.
It's always just this period of time where the sun comes in the window up there, just like. And I've like now got a ring light. People can see the reflection. There's like the other lights in the house are on. I'm trying to do everything I can to mitigate against it, but there's nothing I can do.
Total eclipse of the will is what is happening right now. Okay, so Mike sent around a very detailed email to say, look, so what we're trying to do is we've been consolidating TOFOP into one feed, which is already paying off really well. People who wouldn't ordinarily listen to, Two Guys, One Earn are finding it. FOFOP is getting more listens. Like it's all coming up TOFOP, and this is great. But we'd sort of boxed ourselves into a corner because we had been numbering both TOFOP and FOFOP differently. And there was a very interesting – Mike had done a lot of research on this, and this is interesting because
it's always so interesting to get someone else's outside perspective on what you've been doing, because there was a period of time where I think we went out of our way – certainly I did, I think, for things, our little niche was that no one really understood it apart from the people who understood it. But when you go back and it's like when like a new electrician comes to your house and it's like, who did this wiring? Why is
your house is held together with bubble gum?
Yeah, your fridge is connected to your bath. I don't know what's going on.
So it's not just our fault because when we started, and
not just.
Well, part of it is our fault because we've been around for so long.
Absolutely, it is part of our fault.
Like trends have changed and protocols have changed and methods of doing things have changed, and we've just been this old dinosaur lumbering along.
And sometimes they've changed and changed back, to be fair.
100%, and that's what I was just going to say. So when we started podcasting, it was just everyone numbered their podcasts. This is episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. So we started doing that. And then when we started spinning off other podcasts, we started numbering them as well. Then in like 2016 or so, or a few years ago at least, Apple were like, hey, stop numbering your podcast because it's going to be numbered automatically once you sort of upload it to Apple. And so people started stopped numbering their podcast. But then something else happened where they need to be numbered. And it's very complicated because we have a server that we upload to, and that also automatically. There's a bunch of numbers out there which just don't fucking correspond,
and no one cares about really,
and no one really cares about, and it's super confusing. And so,
my brother asked me the other day. He was like, "How many podcasts do you think you've done with like all the ones you've done in here, plus like the ones you've been a guest on?" And I said to him, "I would have no idea because there's no way to go and look at our feed and even understand." Like best of episodes or like compilations or what, like it's
in excess of 1,000 easily.
Oh yeah, I would say it's like probably in excess of 1,500, but like there's no clear way for us to be able to just work that out. Well, apparently there is, and we're going to try to do that.
So it's serving two functions. One, it's just a kind of we're going to sunset FOFOP, not as a show, but as a brand.
Yeah,
It
so
served us well.
So the old shows still are going to be in the old feed where they are now,
Yep.
but all the new shows are in the TOFOP feed, and
are going to be in the TOFOP.
And there are not only is TOFOP still going to exist, but in a way we're expanding TOFOP and FOFOP into a whole bunch of different areas, really.
Yeah, but we're not going to be calling it FOFOP anymore
that's right.
because it's too confusing.
For everyone.
When you have a sales team that are trying to sell your show and they're like, what the fuck are we selling? Why are there two shows when it's essentially the same show, just with one of the guys not there?
And they've changed one of the letters and it was already hard to understand what the name of the show was. Why are you making it more confusing?
So it's going to be basically what you'll be getting in the TOFOP feed is TOFOP Original, which is this, TOFOP with Friends, which is FOFOP, and then TOFOP limited edition series like Two Guys, One Earn, and other things that we're planning where we'll focus on this particular subject or a particular guest for a certain run. So think about it like we're TOFOP plus. That is what exists now. I actually said that as a joke, but I'm like, that's kind of really what it is. It's TOFOP and everything expanded from TOFOP. So we have to. I've actually written it down because I'm going to be recording what were TOFOPs with Friends. And it's like, well, I have to think of a way to introduce the show now. Do I just say, everyone relax, this is TOFOP with Friends, and then, roll into introducing the guest?
I don't know.
You don't know about that?
I don't know about I mean, I don't mind everyone relax.
I mean, we have to introduce the show, right?
Do we though?
I don't know. Maybe things have changed.
Maybe it's just everyone relax.
Everyone relax. I'm Charlie Clausen, and my guest this week is okay.
I mean, I don't love that, to be honest.
I don't love that either.
No.
So maybe we keep everyone relaxed to TOFOP original flavor.
Everyone relaxes to TOFOP. Like, what do we normally say on FOFOP?
Because then I guess I'll be explaining what the fucking meaning means to a guest.
Hello and welcome to FOFOP. I'm Will Anderson.
I just say hello and welcome to FOFOP.
Yeah, okay.
I'm Charlie Clausen.
Hello and welcome. What about hello and welcome to the show?
Hello, welcome to the show. Yeah, welcome to it.
Yeah, just start. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm Charlie Clausen. I'm here with Cam Knight.
How do you start? Did you start?
Mine used to be hello and welcome to FOFOP. I'm Will Anderson, and joining me is guest Charlie, Dave Anthony, or Gareth Reynolds, or Matt Kirshen, or Jen Kirkman.
So what are you going to say now?
Daniel Sloss, or whoever it is. Well, at the moment, I'm doing my little side project that people is like Two Guys, One Earn. So it will still be going. Well, people hear this. We're recording a week or two in advance, but it's happening over the summer of cricket that is happening in the UK. And so every week I have a different guest host to talk about cricket in the style that Charlie and I talk about football on our other podcast, Two Guys, One Cup. And what was the fuck? Oh, so I just say, welcome to Two Guys, One Earn. I'm Will Anderson, and joining me is, whoever is joining me. So
that's the confusion is we're welcoming, it's everything after the show name is fine.
Yeah.
It's just, what are we calling it?
It's a good point, actually. You're right. It does feel like it needs some sort of name.
Yeah. Welcome to TOFOP. Welcome to TOFOP with Friends. Welcome to TOFOP
can
and
it
Friends.
still be it's only about the labeling it, right? Because once you're in it, you know what I mean? Can it still be FOFOP internally, or is that still confusing?
I think it's too confusing. I think we're just okay. Let's pretend it never happened. It's kind of like the WWE never refer to the history of the WWF. What if we call it
NoFOP and make it even more confusing because there's not one of us in the room? Welcome to you're right. It still feels like it needs a name of some kind though, doesn't it? All right.
I mean, is TOFOP or is that TOFOP now? Like TOFOP is like more than just you and I. TOFOP is the show.
It's a good point. Like people can understand that, right?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to TOFOP.
Welcome to TOFOP.
I'm Charlie Clausen, and joining me today is
That seems the easiest one, right?
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah, they're both TOFOP now. That's okay.
Yeah. So the other thing is that we're going to renumber. So this is actually episode 451, which we felt was a good point. I need to kick off. I was going to call it the Great Reset, and then I had vague isn't that like a white nationalist term, or is like the conspiracy that we're all getting replaced? Oh, that's the Great Replacement, right? So
I'm just going to.
I mean, I do believe. I think the Great Reset has more to do with like the New World Order or something like that.
Look, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. The Great
but it's a conspiracy.
The Great Reset is an economic recovery plan drawn up by the World Economic Forum in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, yeah, but conspiracy nuts have taken that to be like, oh, it's more than just, restarting the economy.
This is the actually Great Reset. There's no reset, really. We're just trying to get the numbers right.
We are resetting the numbers, though. So, because there's 430 odd TOFOPs and 40 odd FOFOPs. So what we're saying, though, is no. Those 400 and whatever odd FOFOPs exist in an archive now. And from now, this is TOFOP 451. And then everything that goes in this feed after that will follow sequentially.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Okay. So we're just essentially saying those 400 and whatever episodes just don't exist in the timeline anymore, but FOFOP is
they
now
do.
Here. But they're just in their own spot.
In an archive.
Yeah, but
somewhere.
not in the timeline is what I'm saying. I'm not saying
That's right.
I'm not saying they don't exist at all. They are absolutely accessible. But in terms of numbering, okay.
Now I should bring up Mike, I know you're cutting this episode, and I'm going to use your words exactly because it did make me laugh. Because the only complication amongst all of this is that there are like part of the numbering issue was every time we did like a best of or a bonus or whatever, we never numbered them. So there's 13 like Easter egg episodes that. Wow, what does Mike say? So. He goes, what about the 13 lost episodes? They're hidden in the feed somewhere. Forget about them. I love it because like this is what you and I need. We need someone who's willing to make the fucking.
We don't want to forget about anything. We want to be like as complicated as it possibly can be. And he's
just need like Mike the Third to come in.
They're out of here.
Yeah, just bring in a scalpel.
No one
whatever
cares.
Fucking skin
we
tags.
We need to get rid of these, or you're going to die of.
They're gone. Forget it. They don't exist. But I like it because I think that, like, for the tape heads out there, for the real fucking, people love the deep cuts.
Yeah,
they'll become the unicorn episode. Right. It's like, like, that best of from 2013. Sure. Like, if you're a completionist. Yeah. I think it just gives people something to strive for and bootleg and all that kind of shit. So are you okay with 13 episodes like disappearing?
I mean, clearly from the fact that I have not read this email while everybody else involved in our business chipped in on it, you can tell my lack of care on this. I don't care. Whatever we want to do, I don't care. As long as people can still find all the episodes. Other than that, like what they're numbered. That's just not, we talk about this a little on our football podcast, 2 Guys, 1 Cup, available for exclusive on the listener app, about the idea that like with football players, even my favorite football players, I can never remember what their numbers are. It's one of those things that some people are like, this person wore this number and this person wore this number. I could watch someone play for 300 games and struggle to know what number they wear on their back. And it's a bit the same with this. I don't really care, the numbering system. Like I'm happy for it to be whatever it is.
It's a little more complicated for me because I'm the one who maintains the website, updates and stuff. So I've got to work out what the fuck I'm going to do there. And Foz is the other person because Foz bakes the number of the episode into the episode. So, I mean, if you're talking collectibles, there's going to be some fucking artwork out there.
Oh, yeah. Some good, like, Michael Jordan's been misspelt sort of posters or whatever.
Yeah. Or his 43 Wizards jersey or something like that. There's lots of little collectibles and quirks and stuff like that. But that's kind of what you can expect from TOFOP going forward is it feels like we have 3 streams, which is 2 Guys, 1 Cup, Philosophy and TOFOP. But TOFOP is going to be one that's pumping over the special episodes and all that kind of stuff, which I think, thank God, it's taken us only 13 years to get to this point.
Okay, so this is 451 then, is it?
Yeah.
And so now we count TOFOP with friends, which we're just going to say is like TOFOP and just like introduce someone else who isn't us, right?
Yeah.
So TOFOP with friends is now in this numbering system. And 2 guys, 1 earned, for example, would also be in this numbering system. So if in a week we could have this episode, we could have like sometimes it'll be one or the other, right? Like it'll be a TOFOP with friends, or it'll be like a 2 guys, 1 earned. But like there might be a week where there is both, right?
I think next week will be one of those.
Okay,
weeks,
so that means that if we're at 450 now, how quickly do we get to 500?
Pretty quick. Pretty quick.
Right.
Pretty quick, which does tie into another bit of news that we might as well announce now, because I think it's going to come out around about the same time, that there is a chance that episode 500 will be a live episode. Yes, Will and I are making plans to get back on stage. We have booked some dates, which we'll be announcing soon, but Melbourne and Sydney only.
Just dipping our toe back in the water to see what the interest levels are.
Yeah, we had options of big rooms or small rooms.
And we chose
like
small, niche, boutique.
Niche.
But also partly because what we wanted to do was, I think like we've done those fun big shows, Opera House and, the Comedy Festival, huge room sort of versions of this show before. But we were a little bit more interested in making it a bit more in the spirit of the show, not having to make it this big show and kind of like make it more about, the 2 of us, talking on stage. Whether there'll be guests and other things, there probably will be, but like with a much more a focus around what you normally hear from the podcast. And we're going to dip our toe back in and see if there's any interest in us doing some live shows. Yeah,
so that should probably coincide around the 500 episode. So that'll be a nice little coincidence. I mean, I don't necessarily think we're going to turn it into like a giant celebration around the 500, but I just think it's cool timing that we will get back onto the stage as we cross 500.
I think we should refer to each of those shows as our live 500th. Do you know what I mean? Like, now the numbering makes sense. Like, I'm just going to fuck with it from inside the program.
Mike the Thirst is fucking
play mind games.
What the fuck are they saying they're going to do?
So we do 6 shows and we call them all the 500th episode.
Let's get to the mailbag now. It feels like a good enough time. I get to the mailbag. Ian, you might remember Ian is one of the TOFOP 12 that actually turned out to be, was it 11? Ian has writing to saying, when you guys talk about Will getting 1 big arm for arm wrestling, I thought about the arm wrestling whisperer and thought I should send him to you. His voice is like crushed velvet and he wears sunglasses a lot. Love this show and love you each individually in different ways. Ian from Florida. Are you aware of who the arm wrestling whisperer is? This is good. I think you'll enjoy this. I'm just going to share my screen.
I'm absolutely intrigued. I've got to be honest with you. Like, you've got me hooked already.
All right. Okay. So it's not really a visual thing. So listening at home, you're going to get the full impact, because what it's going to be is 2 guys arm wrestling and one of them is whispering to the other guy, but not in a kind of trying to psych him out, more in an encouraging kind of way, like as if he was his arm wrestling trainer.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good luck.
If Christian beats me at arm wrestling, I'll buy him anything in the store.
Let go.
Yeah, you just call it ready, go.
Ready? Go.
So they're starting the arm wrestle.
Backwards. Pull backwards. That's too much rope.
So he's coaching the guy in the arm wrestle.
It's beautiful. Backwards to your face.
The music, right?
Good. Careful now. Dangerous position right there. Yeah. Left shoulder forward.
I mean, without seeing the visuals, you could think something else is going on right now, right? So this guy is really trying hard to get the arm wrestling whisperer's arm down. He says, fuck, you're really strong, man. But he's just easily beating this guy. He's cranking his arm the other way now. The opponent's really struggling. He's getting very red in the face.
No, you're very strong now.
I'm losing it.
You're super strong, man.
Ooh.
Christian, that was
Oh man, I love this. This is like, I mean, firstly, yes, as listeners, that must have just sounded so pornographic. Like, they're just because the encouraging way he keeps telling this guy who's doing everything that he can possibly, but also just he goes, "You're really strong, man.
You're really strong. Rotate it.
Yeah, like, but he's coaching them for people, who can't see. They're having an arm wrestle. And this guy is trying his best to beat this guy, but this guy is so control of not just the arm wrestle itself, but all the technical components of it that he's like trying to tell his opponent how to beat him, and he still can't do it.
And it should be said, so he's wearing like ripped jeans, a black rock and roll t-shirt, and shiny aviator shades, which he never takes off.
No,
so
why would he?
Accompanying that voice, let's watch another one. This is him arm wrestling a woman.
Okay.
Here we go.
Remember,
Is it this arm that's like what I'm supposed to do though?
so move your right arm off the table,
This one?
and then but hold the peg.
The peg is an actual peg,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering.
It's on the table. It's a peg
Slide
that
up,
they
now
can.
sink down. Yeah, spout up. Yes, that's it. Good.
No, quit playing with me.
No,
I want to feel
I mean, like, he's doing it in such a kind of like soulful way. Do you reckon he's getting laid? Like, it's because it feels like foreplay. Like, he's going around to colleges, obviously, and setting up this arm wrestling table, and people are coming over. But like,
find out that he ends up being like one of the biggest sex pests in American history.
I was going to say maybe he's this love guru.
Yeah.
Like, men and women are lining up, and like, he's fluid, man. He'll fucking wrap his arms around.
I want to take that. I want to wake up in those arms, those beautiful arm wrestling arms.
Yeah, man. Should we find one more?
Yeah, why not? Like, it's pretty amazing.
What's the guy's name? Okay. Oh, this is apparently a better one. Oh, so this girl's really going hard. She's like throwing a full body behind it. Oh my God. Nothing bad's happening. I swear to God, they're just arm wrestling, but it sounds. She's really serious.
Yeah.
Like,
she's a professional arm wrestler.
Yeah. He's toying with her, it feels like a bit, though. Like, he's hardly moving.
I mean, I feel like he's being challenged.
He's just beating her. He's telling her not to slip to get ready.
She's trying to use the whole table. She's like leveraging everything she could possibly leverage. And he's just slowly taking her down.
That one was definitely like foreplay.
I mean, that was.
Got it on, mate.
I mean, for me, it was.
I just had no idea that arm wrestling had such eroticism associated with it.
I mean,
that's what they missed out on the Stallone, the Over the Top. If they'd made it more like a love story, like Sly's just looking for love at arm wrestling competitions across America.
Well, what if like my plan is not just to get really good at arm wrestling, but to take down this guy? Like that I'm like, that I want to like, that can be my plan. I can go into training, find some college he's rocking up to, and then I'm like Rodney Dangerfield back to school style, go in undercover as like a student. Hey guys, I'm just
that's it. Well, yeah, give it to me. Just hold on. Yeah, you're doing good. That's it. Don't fight it. Don't fight it. Your thing is you just get beaten until every time you wrestle, another bone in your arm breaks.
Just snaps.
It's just like your cast gets bigger and bigger with each college you visit.
They just put on another layer of another cast.
Oh, yeah, you're really strong. That hurt a lot. I need to go to emergency. Ow. This is from Tim, who I believe is another member of the TOFOP 12. Bloody hell. Hi, Will and Charlie. Wondering if you guys have watched the fantastic documentary The Dark Side of Comedy on SBS Demand.
No.
I'm hopeless at describing the show to make it sound sexy. So here's what IMDb says. Featuring different comics and their personal journeys while exploring their internal battles, unexpected fame, and societal pressures in the comedy world. It's got stories on Chris Farley, Andrew Dice Clay, Roseanne Barr, and Dustin Diamond, to name a few.
Okay.
Now, have you seen The Dark Side of the Ring? Are you aware of that show?
I'm aware of it through you talking about it, I think.
Okay. So it's a spin-off of that show, which I love, The Dark Side of the Ring, but it can be pretty... When they say The Dark Side of the Ring, it's like it's dark. It's like a true crime show most of the time, and it can be pretty intense. I watched one of the comedy ones, and it was just... I found it something, I don't know what it is about my conditioning. I'm okay watching stories about wrestlers being drug addicts and having horrible fucking fucked up lives, and it's okay. But then the comedian ones, I was just like, oh, this is, I don't know. There was something about it that felt more depressing somehow.
I mean, it is more depressing. I would say predominantly, hopefully, because less of your close circle of friends are wrestlers than comedians. Like,
I guess that's right.
You know, do you think it has anything to do with the fact that you know a lot of comedians and they're friends of yours versus not really a lot of wrestlers?
The Rock's my friend. Tim says, I highly recommend you watch both. Basically, they're just true crime stories, a lot of stories from the 80s and 90s era. My partner, who hates wrestling, loves them. The Chris Benoit story is a must-watch. Yeah, that's the worst one. That's the most horrifying. Thanks for the great shows, guys. I never miss one. I'm the kid sidekick of the TOFOP 12. That's right. You're the guy who, was he on a date or something and got into a fight or something? I can't remember, but we salute you. Right the way.
What episode number was that in?
TOFOP, episode 321.
Oh, so if you're after a kid sidekick in the team, then my 15-year-old self is your guy. Also, my date told everyone at school on Monday, and I felt pretty macho after that.
I mean, it's an amazing teenage story.
Did you get any action? That's what we want to know.
So I don't want somebody to be writing us correspondence about 15-year-old action.
He was 15 as well.
Yeah, but doesn't mean we can read about it.
It doesn't have to be like action, just like a little bit of,
I don't want. Please do not write us letters about the action you got when you were underage.
Yeah. Do we need a kid, so like a Robin? Do we need like a young Ward?
I don't mind the idea of it.
We'll put it on the maybe pile.
Yeah.
This is from Genevieve. Dear TOFOP, I'm writing to you following a celebrity sighting.
Okay, great.
This past Friday, June 2nd, I was at the Comedy Club in Sydney to see Claire Hooper.
Oh, yeah.
While sitting pre-performance, my friend noticed none other than Will chilling at the back of the room. Before I go on, I would like to say that Claire killed it, and I would highly recommend her show. Will's hearty laughter was also a good indicator that it was a 10 out of 10 performance, or that you had that weird disease that Joaquin Phoenix has in Joker, where you can't control your laughing.
It'd be really inappropriate for me to go to one of my friend's shows if I had that condition. But there was...
Wouldn't it? Would it be very appropriate?
No, because you need to not be... I'm very aware of not being I have a big laugh, and I was sitting right up the back, so you don't want to make the show about your laugh versus the show that's on stage. But there's always at least a couple of moments in a show like that where there's one of those jokes that comedians love, that not everybody else. And there was still a couple of times where I was like, no, that's just me on that one, but that is gold. You're all wrong. I'm a professional. She's right. I'm right. You're all wrong.
I've been a fan of Will ever since I figured out the difference between him and Adam Hills. When my friend pointed him out, my response was, I'm such a big fan of TOFOP. Of all the things I chose to center on, TOFOP. They didn't know TOFOP existed. I didn't have time to explain, as evidenced by the numerous episodes of TOFOP that exist trying to explain TOFOP. I was about to get up and say hi, but then saw Will had gone to the bathroom. I was faced with a Charlie-like dilemma. Wait a minute. Is that a thing now? Charlie-like dilemma? How creepy would it be if I chose to wait outside the bathroom? Pretty creepy, I would suggest, without reading any further. I determined that it would be creepy and that I would wait until the end of the show. Good call. At the end of the show, Will went to the bathroom, and that was it for me. I clocked off, resigned myself to not being creepy, and left. I'm still sad I didn't get to say hi, but I'm also glad I chose to be less creepy. Yes, I think that's a good lesson. When you have two options, it's like Yoda says, when you have the choice to be creepy or sad, be sad.
Yeah, I think that's what he said, right? I think liking me is never benefited from meeting me. I always feel it is nothing but a disappointing experience. I am socially awkward, and it always is weird and comes off wrong. So I think it was a good choice.
One day, I really just wanted to walk up to him and say, crisps. Will, how would you have responded if a stranger walked up to you, said only the word crisps, and walked away?
I mean, not great, I don't think.
Oh, really?
Well,
You get it.
I think I would, but at the same time, I still think that, particularly, on a night like that when I'm there by myself, you get in your own head, like when you, particularly at a friend's show, I'm like thinking about the show, I'm thinking about the conversations I will have with my friend. So Claire and I went to dinner afterwards, and like if I'm catching up with someone after a show, I always like to hopefully have a couple of like original, like nice things to say about their show. And so like, often post show, I'd be like in my head thinking, what am I going to highlight to Claire about what I like? Because it was, as this correspondent said, like, it was a fucking great show. It's a show about climate change, and it's so hard to write a good show about climate change, but she managed to actually do something that I thought was incredible. So I would have been thinking about all that, and in the middle of that, I would have come out of the bathroom and somebody would have been there going crisps, and I would have gone like my head wouldn't have been in the place to immediately. I would have been halfway down the stairs, and I would have been like, "Oh, like from the podcast."
Yeah. Here's the thing I'll say about like people coming up and saying hi, which I don't. Have
Charlie's
a problem
fine
with necessarily.
Say hello to
I'm
Charlie
fine with
whenever
it.
you want it.
Say
Like, go
hi
up to
me.
him, drop your pants, show him your St Kilda underpants.
But here's what I will say is that it's like when you, just say it's the weekend and you go out and you run into someone from work that you weren't expecting to see, and maybe because you're seeing them out of context because they're not wearing what you normally see them at work, it takes you a second to catch up and you feel a bit like, you always feel like you're behind. That's sort of what happens when someone comes up, because the first thing you think is,
Do I know this person?
Do I know this person? Have I met them before? And so your brain is doing that while maybe your mouth is moving or while that person's talking. So just keep that in mind. Like, it's fine to come up and say hello, but it's also putting me on the spot.
Really make it clear immediately. Like the context. Like the people who come up to me and be like, "Hey, Will," and then like I'm literally I'm in a panic room in my brain going, "I don't know, who is this? Why don't I pay more attention?" Like, and the amount of times, hello, and reveal early on the nature of our relationship is helpful. If we are going to interact, like don't make me solve a cryptic crossword by saying crisps. I'd much rather.
You know the best opening. You don't remember me, do you? Like, you got your answer. Like, why are you even saying that? You don't remember me, do you? No, honestly, I don't.
Not. Sorry.
All right, that is TOFOP, the Great Reset for this week.
It does sound terrible, doesn't it?
If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is still Patreon. We, listener are out trying to get us some sponsors. They haven't got us any yet, so we're still relying heavily on our Patreon support. And thank you to all the people who have signed up. I just checked the new subscriptions, and we've had like 8 people join even this week alone. So that's great. And anyone who's been on the supporting us this whole time, thank you as well. We'll also be making our patrons probably get access to early tickets when we do announce the live show. So if you're looking for motivation to sign up for as little as $1 a month, that might be something that catches your interest. Go to tofop.com to check out all our other pods under the banner of TOFOP, which is something we're going to practice.
Everything is under the banner of TOFOP, except there is still exceptions to our, because there's an extended universe, like, right?
Yeah.
So we've got the TOFOP universe, the TU, right? But then there's the TOFOP extended universe, which is Willosophy and Two Guys, One Cup.
Two Guys,
Two Guys, One Cup you can find on Listener. You can listen to all our podcasts on Listener and the Listener app, by the way. It is free to download. And but that one is exclusive to the Listener app, and Willosophy, of course, which is back and is weekly, back and weekly. So that's really exciting, actually. So if you want to go and resubscribe or check out Willosophy for the first time, featuring a lot of newer or emerging comedians, not exclusively, a bunch of big names as well, but like getting to highlight and have long form conversations with some people who are on the way up or have been around for a while, but you might not know their full story. Cameron James is one that I've had a lot of really strong feedback about, people who know Cam from all his podcasts and stuff he does with Alexi and all that, but they found it really interesting. I got a lovely message from Ben Lee from America. He listened to it, but a few people have said they've enjoyed that one, so that's a good one to check out. I like the Chris Ryan one a lot. If people don't know Chris Ryan, she's a really fantastic comedian from Canberra, now living in Sydney, and I really enjoyed that episode a lot as well. But they're all up there. Willosophy with Will Anderson, wherever you get podcasts.
And if you want to get some TOFOP merch, you can head to our Redbubble page. It's Mr. Foz at Redbubble. James Fosdyke has got a bunch of amazing artwork, not all TOFOP related, but if you want to help us out, buy some TOFOP merch because he gives us a discount.
And I'm going to do a little plug for some shows because I've still got some coming up. So Townsville's probably done by the time you hear this, but there's Sutherland Shire, Wyong, Glenelg. I'm doing a festival in Glenelg. So anyway, comedy.com.au to see some live shows. I've put on some What You Talking About Will improvise shows at the Sydney Comedy Store. They tend to sell out very quickly. So if you want to come along to one of those, I would recommend getting in as quick as possible. And Gruen is back on the tally. So if you want to see that, you can go to ABC iView and it is available for free there.
I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
How long? Not long. Everyone relax.
Fucking stupid.
Listener.